Welcome to J Sports. I'm your host, Joe Chap. Detroit Tigers. They come off a sweep of the Guardians, and I tell you what, man, that Sunday game where they got the tying run in the bottom in the top of the ninth, and then they come back and they get six unanswered runs in the top of the 10th, and they hold on to beat the Cleveland Guardians to sweep the Cleveland Guardians. That's a hell of a victory from the Detroit Tigers, and you know a lot is going to be made over the next couple weeks, especially with the All Star break and I think next week. So we'll go over the midseason awards and all that jazz. But this Tigers team is very, very good. I don't think anybody is saying that lightly. They lead. They lead. They lead the AL Central by 13 and a half games over the Twins. They lead over the Royals. It's 14 games. The Cleveland Guardians 15 and a half, and obviously they have the Chicago White Sox at the end. And if you ask Fangraphs says that have a 98.6% chance to win the division, 80% chance to clinch the bye, and they have a 99.6% chance at making the playoffs. Obviously, percentages are percentages. We learned that last year when the Detroit Tigers went on a run with a 0% chance and they made the playoffs. End all be all. But you have a healthy lead in the division. You're a good team. Tarek Skubal is pitching out of his mind. And a lot's going to be made over the next couple of weeks about them going and getting a bat or going to make a trade or whatever the case may be. Scott Harris obviously has a plan in place. Obviously, this team is very, very good. He needs to capitalize on this opportunity that they have in front of them with the good team that they have. The Tigers are playing absolutely phenomenal. So when the more we hear about this team, man, they're 7-3 in their last 10. They've won three straight, obviously, over the Guardians. That was just this team is playing at the top of their level, and if they continue to do that, I don't care what Scott Harris does at the deadline because there's going to come a point where he's going to have to make a decision of what this Tigers team is going to do, and whether he chooses to get a hitter, fine. Whether he chooses to get a reliever in the pen, fine. Scott Harris is not going to blow this thing up for a one hit wonder. He wants to maintain this over a long stretch, and you look at the young players that are playing great. Riley Green's playing out of his mind. Kerry Carpenter's on the injured list, but that's fine too because Kerry Carpenter needs a rest and he needs to get better for the long haul, not just in the short haul. And obviously with the All Star break coming up, it gives you a little bit of time to play with the numbers and give him a little more rest than a 15-day DL or a 60-day DL. So this Tiger team is doing. They're playing great, man, and it's interesting because a lot of people talk about the Tigers and to say, you know, like what I just said, they need a bat, they need a reliever. The way I look at the team, man, they're beating teams that are very, very good. I think their record outside the AL Central is very, very good. So when people say that the Detroit Tigers, they're just beaten up on a bad division. Yes, this is a horrible division. The Tigers are taking advantage of it. You know, in years past, there's been teams that have taken advantage of a bad division and won it. Um, it still shouldn't take away from the fact that the Tigers are winning and they're winning and they're winning and they're continuing to win in ways that are not you don't always see. Them coming back today in the top of the ninth to tie the game and then win the game ultimately in the extras. That's a sign of a good team, man. And you really can't look at this team and say that they're not good. You can't look at this team and say that they could be mentioned in the World Series predictions. This is a tough team, man. And look, is Tarek Schoolbowl going to get signed? We'll see what happens coming up, but let's just see what Mr. Uh, Scott Harris has planned. Obviously, he's not going to blow this thing up. He's not going to give up the farm for just a one hit wonder. That doesn't make any sense. But this team is good enough. You see teams like the Yankees have a high payroll, the Dodgers who have a high payroll. They're not performing at the level that the Tigers are performing. So this has been a great year for this team. Obviously, last year at the end, if you go over the last year, they have 100 wins. So it's been great for this Tigers team. I'm very impressed by the way that they've been playing. I'm very impressed by the way that they've been able to, in the in the ways that they've won, because some of the ways that they have won, they're not something you're going, okay, yeah, that's terrible. That's just ironic. That's just lucky. They're winning in ways where it's talent, man, and they got a talent all throughout the roster. I mean, Zach McKinstry is a guy that I have been heavy on, but he has really showed out, and he's a really reliable player. He a lot of the fan base might not realize it, but he's a very key part to this team. And you have 20, you have every roster spot is huge on this team, and AJ Hinch has alluded to that, how huge every roster spot is. So if they do make a trade, you could bet your ass the Tigers won't really um, beat themselves up by getting a player that doesn't match their culture, doesn't match the way that they play, and doesn't match the way AJ Hinch wants to play. That's what Scott Harris has to deal with, because we see it all the time across sports where a team goes and they get a big name player, right? Miko Rantanen went to the Dallas Stars. It didn't satisfy them in winning a Stanley Cup. We see teams over and over again try to make these big pitches to go big for they go huge for a player, and it doesn't pan out. It's just the way it goes. So sometimes when you bring a guy in, it doesn't work out. But that's because these general managers, they want to make the big splash, but they don't realize the big splash is going to really hurt them in terms of their morale, the team, the way that they play, the way that they grind it out, the coaching philosophy. All those things need to be weighed into. And I'm very happy the way Scott Harris has been able to tie this thing together and make this team a very tough team to play against, and a very tough team to uh, manage against. They're not an easy team to manage against, and it's going to be very, very interesting to see what they could do over the next couple months, leading up to October, leading up to the divisional run. But this team is good, and anyone that's saying they're not good, or the Guardians, they're just beaten up by a bad division, go check the stats. The stats say that they're really good outside their division. Like if I go, let me go check it real quick. But if I go check it right now, what's the Tiger? Let me see it right here. Tiger side AL Central. So the Tigers' record outside the AL against the AL Central is 18-9. Outside outside the AL Central, it is I can't really. I'll have to really look at this, but um, they've been really. This is a team that's been absolutely just rolling. We're very, very excited to see what they've been able to do, and we're gonna see what they're able to do going forward. But this Tigers team is a very good team, and we're gonna see what Scott Harris has planned, what this team has planned, and we'll see what happens in the weeks to come. But obviously, the Tigers start tomorrow against Tampa Bay Rays, and they come home to play the Tampa Bay Rays, which is going to be great because this Tigers team has been on the road for what seems like a long time. They're coming back, and they'll be great. So we'll see you in the next video as we talk more Detroit Tigers baseball here on J Sports. We'll see you in the next video as we talk more Tigers baseball here on J Sports.